All right, so we are making the first official review video ever. Give yourself a hand for being here. Okay, and again, this is a chance for me to say thank you to the Monday, Wednesday class and to the Tuesday, Thursday class for being so patient with me this semester through all these voice issues. Tuesday, Thursday class, I'll be having some testing done while y'all are studying. Monday class, y'all will be ready to rock on Monday, 10 o'clock. Tuesday, Thursday class, ready to rock, 9:25 right here. You'll have plenty of time that you need to get the test taken care of. So I'm going to show you the board in a minute if you're watching the video. What we've done up here is we've taken 8 different rows, and we've sort of been coming up with some things that we talk about in each one of these chapters. We're going to start off in chapter 8, and the more audience participation we have, the more fun this will be for everyone. So when we rewind our lives all the way back to the end of August and the beginning of September, wow, how we've all grown and changed. We started off in chapter 8 with the mind and the psychology of the athlete. Because I don't know if you remember, I told you can't get into someone's heart, into their quads, into their performance, until you get into their head first. And we know that many careers have been absolutely ruined. We talk about the greatness of just sports psychology. So what is actual sports psychology? Crickets. Walker. Very good. Sports psychology is simply just the study of the science of the brain connected to movement. And that's one of those important things that we talk about. Those bullets are listed on page 156. We can measure the phenomenon, we can investigate the relationship, and we can apply that knowledge. Because you guys, knowledge is just nothing if you don't use it. So when you get this knowledge, use it, use it, use it, use it. We talk about this thing called the ideal performance state. Give me 3 or 4 characteristics of the ideal performance state. Someone, go.
No fear.
No fear. What? Oh, the Kobe Bryant thing that we talk about in the book. We really see, what? Effortlessness. Time distortion. Personal control. Awesome. We see these things being really important as they relate to the athlete. So those are actually listed on page 156 as well. Be really comfortable with that aspect. And as you are studying, think about you being in the ideal performance state too. So you're going to be well hydrated, you're going to be well nutritioned, and you're going to be well rested before you rock out these tests. We talk about different kinds of anxiety when we jump over onto page 158. We talk about state anxiety. What is state anxiety?
You're in the experience of it.
You're in the experience. You guys, state anxiety is actually quantitative data. You can measure it. The score is 24-24. There's 3 seconds left in the game. Both teams are in bonus. Your main free throw shooter is in foul trouble. Those are things that we can actually measure. What about trait anxiety? What is trait anxiety?
It depends on you personally.
It's what everyone brings to the table. You know, I've heard, and I probably said this, and maybe you're hearing it again, that each one of us have what I call issues in our tissues. This is all the baggage that we all bring to the table everywhere we go. It's our job to manage our own baggage, but it's also us as humans to know that everyone does have a story and baggage and help everybody deal with their trait anxiety. Another one that we really and truly talked about is cognitive anxiety. What is cognitive?
Thinking about it.
Things in your head. Like the cogs in an engine. How are they turning? These can either be positive thoughts or negative thoughts. You get to choose. Do you realize that it takes the same amount of energy to think good thoughts or to think bad thoughts? So why wouldn't you use this pool of energy to think good things? Choose where you spend your energy. Again, I mentioned it before and I'm saying it again on video this time. Don't stress about what you don't know as of today. Focus on what you know and then add more to that knowledge every single time. So we talk about state anxiety, trait anxiety, cognitive anxiety. What was that other one?
Somatic.
Somatic. What is somatic anxiety? Those physical symptoms. Actually, I love that you said symptoms. So what are some of those? Sweating, heart rate, butterflies in your stomach. All of a sudden you feel this arousal. You feel every single hair follicle. All of a sudden the gun's about to go off and things just start to happen. You feel instant, that rush of blood that comes to your face. All of those are great examples of somatic anxiety. We talk about 2 different flavors of stress. What are the 2 different flavors of stress?
Eustress and de-stress.
Eustress, which is the Amy McKay experience, so yes it is.
Yes.
Okay, and then there's distress, which is not the Amy McKay experience, right? No. Eustress is that positive push in your life that really pushes you, that allows you to become better. Eustress. Distress is that negative energy. Hey, what kind of people are you?
Smart people.
Smart people. Why are we here?
To get the tools to live.
Okay, so let's put some pieces together. If I am in a constant state of distress, do you think I'm operating in anabolic or catabolic drive? Catabolic drive. Tell me the primary hormone that is in play when you are in catabolic drive. Cortisol. Focus on what you know. Look, you already knew that. Guess what? You don't have to study that ever again because you know it. So now know it and use it. Okay? Another thing that we need to talk about is we mentioned Hall's drive theory. And this is whenever your arousal state increases, typically your performance does as well. So this is this whole thing, being hyped up before the course of Cannonball. This is this thing going on, moving, feeling that. The beautiful part about it is when everything goes right, when the arousal goes up, the performance does as well. So that's what that researcher Hall found out for all of us. Jump over, and then we talked about this thing called catastrophe theory. Oh my gosh. Does anybody remember I had to stop and spell there. Does anyone remember the example that we talked about, catastrophe theory? There's a cartoon. Tuesday, Thursday class? Okay, Chicken Little. The sky is falling, the sky is falling. Do you know people that all of a sudden resort to catastrophe theory when they have a stinking splinter? Yes, it's not a catastrophe that you have a splinter. Let's just fix it and move on. So we have to help people discern the difference between what is worthy of going into distress and what is not worthy of going into distress. Because once we get into distress, we are now anabolic or catabolic? Catabolic. So we've got to teach people how to manage this. Whenever you think about the things that we learned with the hormone system in chapter 4, do you all now intricately see how being anabolic or catabolic can be affected by where your brain is taking you? You guys, you better be careful. The sad part about it is you listen to yourself. Your biggest enemy can live between your ears. And if you continually telling yourself that you're not worthy and that you're not good enough, guess what? You'll believe yourself. So how you perform anabolically or catabolically can have a huge impact on the power of the brain. So think about how you're thinking. I know that sounds weird to think about how you're thinking. Keep your thinking in check, without a doubt. We talked about the intrinsically motivated athlete. What is the intrinsically motivated athlete?
They're motivated from within.
They take care of their motivation on themselves. They have this big level of drive. From here, we actually talked about MAS and MAF. Who remembers MAS and MAF? Motivated to achieve success or motivated to avoid failure. Is one better than the other? No. We just need to understand that the key there is they're both motivated. And that's what we have to tap into without a doubt. So kind of brush up your skills on that interesting thing. I'm trying to think what else we talked about. We talked about attention, and that is simply the process of the environment and the internal cues that come to awareness. Over here, one of Eugenia's people wrote selective attention. Selective attention is the ability, was that you? Oh. Selective attention is the ability to drown out all of the static and tune in to the music. It's kind of an analogy. Did you pick up what I was putting down? Figure out what's really not important in the moment and hone your attention on what is. You know, there's an interesting thing about when you learn and you start living what you are really in control of, you'll be a happier person. Guess what? I hate to tell you, I had tried to do it for like 45 years. Never was successful at it. I can't control the weather. I don't know why I somehow thought that I could control the weather, but you can't. So figure out what you can control and what really is out of your control. That links with our goals, and this chapter also talks about how setting goals is so important. We talk about process goals, and we talk about outcome goals. Learn and know the difference between the two, because that's how we start to see, hey, why would goal setting be an important thing for a relationship between a trainer and an athlete, a coach and an athlete, an athlete and an athlete, and a person and person? Tell me 3 things about goals.
You have something to achieve.
You have something to achieve.
You have a time frame.
Excellent, Haley, you have a time frame. Okay, what does the S stand for? If it's a SMART goal, what is S?
Specific.
Specific, M,
Measurable.
measurable, A,
Achievable.
achievable, R, realistic. You know, people come to me, I'm getting married in 3 weeks and I need to lose 48 pounds so I can fit in my wedding dress. Not real smart for you to get fat before your wedding. That's what I want to say, but that's not, well, kind of it is what I say sometimes. Y'all know I'm pretty unedited. And what was the last T? On a time frame. That's how we know that goals start to come into work. This chapter also talked about some ways for us to deal with all of these different kinds of motivation, all of these different kinds of mental things. I think the first one it talked about was diaphragmatic breathing. I'm on page 164 in your book. Diaphragmatic breathing is that process of allowing the diaphragm to expand to completely fill those lungs. Why is it important for us to remind people to breathe? What's a key important thing that's in air? Oxygen. Without oxygen in and carbon dioxide out, we're done. It's kind of like running out of ATP. What happens when you run out of ATP? You're dead. Guess what? If you don't have oxygen going in and carbon dioxide going out, you got no ATP to deal with. The ATP is like, peace out, I'm done. So when we move through all of these things, diaphragmatic breathing, when we talk about the 2 different systems in our nervous system that work together, which ones were we talking about? We have the, go with the other one first, sympathetic. Okay, everybody give me this, sympathetic, give me a claw. Okay, then parasympathetic, like this. Okay, sympathetic, parasympathetic. Give me the face, give me the claw. Sympathetic, parasympathetic. Okay, now, we're supposed to jump in here occasionally. We really are. But where do we need to be most of the time? We need to be operating parasympathetic. Remember we talked about parasympathetic being what we call the rest and digest? Remember we talked about the example? If all of a sudden something happened sympathetically and maybe you had just eaten, all of a sudden you're like, I think I'm going to puke. Because your body is not thinking about digesting food at that moment. It's thinking about bringing you back out of distress. Because the longer you stay in distress, the more catabolic you're going to